at Sticky Fingers, just off Kensington High Street, with its owner, the one and the very only Mr. Bill Wyman. Bill, welcome.
Wait a minute, welcome to my restaurant.
Welcome to ME1 and welcome to your very own restaurant. Now, Sticky Fingers, how long has this been here?
Last week we celebrated our 26th anniversary. And when I opened this, on this site, 5 restaurants had failed on this site, and everybody says it will never work because you're going to fail. And here we are 26 years later, and we're still doing well. So what can I say?
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, not the you think the most natural step for the bass player out of the world's leading rock and roll band to do. At the time, did people think you were completely crazy?
Yeah, but they thought I was completely crazy. A lot of projects I did, but they did have to swallow their words sometimes. Yeah, because it kind of worked out.
Because you were known as the quiet one of the Stones. You just stood there.
That's because no one ever spoke to me. That's why. They said, "Why don't you never speak?" I said, "You never asked me a question." You know. But that's the way it was in those days.
But you were content way back then to stand away from the spotlight and
with Charlie, and just watch the other 3 lunatics, and having a laugh. You'll see us on all the videos, behind all the rest of them, just having a laugh, because that's what we did.
So when you left the Stones, we would want to hark back to the Rolling Stones, but of course that's why a lot of memorabilia is here and it's part of your life. What changed for you? I mean, did you immediately miss that adulation? Because there you were all of a sudden a stone alone, literally.
No, I was never into the adulation anyway. Neither was Charlie. That was just something the other 3 enjoyed and revered. No, when I left, a big cloud lifted off my head, and I suddenly was free to do a whole host of things that I'd never had the time to do before, and which I'd always wanted to do, like photography, archaeology, photo exhibitions, write books, open a restaurant, and raise a new family.
And of course, about that time you had your first solo album that did well, and even
wasn't my first solo album. It was my 1, 2, 3. It was my third, wasn't it?
When was Monkey Grip?
74. Stone Alone was 76, and Bill Wyman, the A&M album, was 82. See, I'd left a gap there as well. But off that album, I had Je suis un rockstar, which was a world hit, and I had 3 other top 40 singles off that album in Britain, so it was very successful. But then I moved on to all these other projects. I did Willie and the Poor Boys and raised money for the MS charities, and that was great. That was like a forerunner of the Rhythm Kings, because it was a lot of celebrities joining me and playing with me as a little unit. That was rather sweet. It was then that I started writing my first book, and it was then that I thought about opening a restaurant.
So was there any risk factor to all this buccaneering job, or were you just enjoying yourself?
Well, there's always a risk factor if you step out on your own when you're in a very successful band. But, bless the public, they received everything nicely, and everything I've done since I left the band, amazingly, has been mostly successful. So I'm very fortunate, aren't I?
And of course there was that movie, what was the movie? The Green something?
Green Ice, yeah, I did a movie score for that, which was very well received, although the film wasn't. But I always got great reviews for the music, which was a bit sad. And then I did some movie music for Italian films with Terry Taylor, which were really nice. And so, yeah, but that I didn't think that was for me, so I just carried on. I produced other artists. I also played on other people's records. All that. So I was getting off, and then forming the Rhythm Kings was amazing, because I suddenly had my own band where I could do any kind of music I wanted, not just do rock and roll, for instance, but I could step into jazz and blues and country and soul and everything. And with the band I put together, I had Georgie Fame on organ, I had Gary Brooker on keyboards, I had Peter Frampton on guitar, Andy Fairweather-Low, Martin Taylor, Albert Lee, all those great guitar players. And I had other guests on the records like George Harrison, Eric Clapton, Mark Knopfler, etc., Paul Carrick. So it was just a magic thing just to be able to do music for the love of it rather than for the charts, for a hit record and a single or whatever, which was in the Stones. I was able to just do it for the love.
I remember introducing your surprise party at the 100 Club. I don't know which one it was, your 21st again, but I remember Peter Frampton there playing some of the best guitar I'd ever seen.
I know. You'd ever heard, you mean? Not ever seen.
Ever heard?
You don't see guitar solos. Well, but maybe you do.
Well, I'm deaf. But it was an incredible night. I mean, and Frampton, what a guitarist.
Yeah, I also had a fantastic 60th birthday where everybody came and played as well, which was amazing. And I had lots of great celebrity friends came as well. So everything's been good, And then I got into archaeology and I found Roman sites no one had ever found before. Found hundreds of Roman coins and items. Found Iron Age coins, I found Bronze Age items, I found Saxon stuff, that was another whole thing, Then I was working on the history of my house, which goes back to the 11th century, and then I found that the guy I bought my house off of was the godfather of the Crays, Ronnie, Reggie and Charlie, and then I found that all these amazing people used to come to my house, like Rudyard Kipling and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, and etc. So I've got a great history there. Everything really interesting in my life. I find really interesting shit going on, it's amazing.
And of course, you that unabiding love of comedy, which people probably don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and we had many times with Spike Milligan, you and I, but
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day. But comedy, obviously, was a great passion of yours.
Oh, absolutely, from Max Miller. The stuff that he did was extraordinary. And just to sit and watch Tommy Cooper and those great things Tommy Cooper he did a little skit once where it's never been featured on any of the specials and no one ever talks about it, but it was this wonderful one I never forget because we had a Tommy Cooper hour, like an evening, and I think you were probably there, and everybody had to go out and do their favourite Tommy Cooper joke, and there were all these movie stars and everything there as well, and my one was the one that everybody seemed to have forgotten about, where he says, I don't like flies, he says, but I can't kill them, I hate them around the house, but I can't kill them. So what I did was I went out and bought one of them cans of instant starch, and every time I saw a fly, I went, psh, they just glide out the window. And I love shit like that.
Do you know, I can remember that, and I'll tell you who the host was. It was Sir Anthony Hopkins. Do you remember?
That's right, Anthony Hopkins, yeah. And I sat with him for hours, and it was, and he did a great one as well, didn't he? We all did them. It was a wonderful evening, actually, a Cooper extravaganza.
And I remember Hopkins was in Tommy Cooper the entire evening. He only spoke in that, all right, the entire evening.
Not like that, yeah. I know, it was amazing. No, but I loved Norman Wisdom, I loved all that stuff, Comedy's special, but Spike was something special, wasn't he? And I remember opening the tree, the fairy tree in Hyde Park, which we contributed money for, and it was amazing. And Prince Charles came down and shook our hands and all that. And my little daughter Katie was 3 years old, and I said, "You're going to meet the Prince today." No, she was like 3.5, nearly 4. And I said, "You're going to meet the Prince today," and she was all excited. So when he came down, I said, "This is the Prince." She said, "Well, so where is his horse and all the armour?" Because she was thinking of Prince Charming, in one of the Disney films. And he was wonderful, Charles. He turned around and he said, "If I didn't know, I would have got changed into a nice outfit for you." No, he was really sweet. So, yeah. Hundreds of lovely memories, through the years of great people that I met, and being fortunate enough to bump into loads of heroes that I loved. It's amazing to be in a career that introduces you to all your idols, both in sport, in the movie world, in the theatre, in art, writing. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, when I was a kid in Dartford in Kent, I had a poster on the wall of you, and if you'd have said to me then, I'll be sitting here one day with you, I would have said, get off. No chance. But
I know.
On the new album, Bill, the first solo album for 33 years, Back to Basics, there's a lyric on there, and forgive me if I get it wrong, but it says along the lines of, it's been a long, long time for me to sing a song. So 33 years, has the urge been there, or have you just been too busy?
Literally too busy, yeah. Writing 7 books and doing all that stuff, photo exhibitions around the world. I think we already talked about all that. And the Rhythm Kings, of course, 17 years, writing a lot of songs for the Rhythm Kings. And it just came to me last year. I was just listening to iTunes, and I had this various demos of mine on there, and I kept coming across these songs. I'm thinking, that ain't a bad song, maybe I should do it again. And I thought, too old, and I thought, well, blues artists go on forever, classical musicians go on forever, poets, writers, sculptors go on forever. What the hell? I'll go for it. And so I did it, but I did it in a different way. I'd been listening to J.J. Cale, obviously, and Tom Waite and people like that, Leonard Cohen, John Prine, singing lower, and that's what I did. I just changed all the levels of where I was singing down. It was more appropriate for my age and my voice now. And I really enjoyed it, doing it that way, differently. And came out really nice as far as I was concerned, much better than I'd anticipated. And I used hardly any musicians. And that's why I called it Back to Basics. Basics, right?
Basics, right.
Basics.
I get it. Some won't, but I get it. But the thing that, the thing about it is that because of the way that you're singing, which is close up and very intimate, it becomes a very intimate album from just your lyrics. But it feels like you're speaking, you're actually telling a story. I find it quite amazing that you come out with something like that.
After all these years, I've come up with something decent.
I wasn't going to say that. But it's a really comfortable album. It sits really well.
Well, I stick the voice out for a change. I always tried to hide it in the past, bury it in sort of tracks. I always did that because I was always nervous of my singing and not very confident about it. But on this one, I really thought I'd written some good lyrics, and I wanted them out there, for people to listen to. And all I was getting from people, every time I did interviews or I played stuff to people and all that, they all came up with the same word. Your lyrics are really quirky. And quirky, this sort of word, which I'd hardly ever used in my life, just kept appearing all the time. Quirky lyrics, quirky. When I say, now I know just where I'm at. Is it a Monday, is it a Tuesday or November, And they say, that's really quirky. It was bizarre. I never thought of myself as a quirky lyricist.
Well, you are. It is quirky, but it's a fascinating album, and as you say, it's a lot of styles there. They're all woven together. And sometimes when you get a musician do an album, you find that if it's a drummer, it's a drumming album with drums way up in the mix, and you can't hear the rest. Yeah. But for this, the bass is way back there. It's just like a conglomerate.
Yeah, not noticeable really. The funny thing was, when I did the last track, which is the blues, called I Got Time, which I didn't really write for myself, I wrote it for somebody else, but they didn't want to do it, so I thought, well, the hell, I'll do it then. It was in Medley in Peru, actually, because we'd worked on some tracks, and we'd co-written a couple of songs, which she put on her album, and I came up with that one overnight and said, what do you think? Would you like to do it? And because she wasn't involved in it, and I don't blame her, because people are like that in this day and age. No, I don't think it's for me. Although it was, I wrote it for her, like a Billie Holiday song. And I thought, well, the hell, I'll do it then. But then I put this kind of busy bass lines on it, And then when we were trying to shoot a little video the other week, and they were focusing on my hand, I had to get the notes right. And it was a bugger, I tell you. Because when you just play, you just play. And things come out, you know, the way they do naturally from the way you do it. But when you want to copy that and get it precisely right the next time, it's another story altogether. And I had to sit down for 15 minutes and relearn my bass lines on that silly, simple little, blues song to get it right, because I knew if musicians were watching me with my hands, they would say, he's not playing it properly, you know. Because I do that when I see videos. When I see Cumberbatch doing doing Sherlock Holmes, and he's playing the violin, you can see he ain't really playing it, you know, it's wrong. And so I had to be precise. And like I say, it took me 15 minutes to relearn my little simple bass part. I mean, it was so frustrating. But, you know, to try to get things right, that's what you have to do.
Listening to Gimme Shelter the other day on the radio, and it's striking me that bass line is so prevalent all the way through it. It really smacks at you. So when back then, did you actually feel that that was out of place way back then? Or you'd saying that the bass, you know,
No, but when you played live, you did a similar kind of line to the one that was on the records, obviously, but sometimes you added to it or changed a bit, you know. And it worked live because it was slightly different. But when you were trying to shoot a video of that song, you had to kind of look like you were playing that particular riff, as Charlie had to do the particular drum thing and everything else. So it was slightly frustrating because you never really ever played a record live the way you did it when you recorded it. You know, it was always adapted from.
But we're back to basics now. And there's another track which I really love, but Can't Get Enough of That Stuff, whatever.
Oh, yeah, Stuff, yeah. That was my follow-up to Je Suis un Rockstar. It was never released because the record label just all changed. And I said, you can't have it now because I don't know any of you guys. So I never released the single. And it was released in Japan. The album was released and only in Japan. So I thought that needed revisiting, as it were, but in a more simpler way to go with the rest of the album. That's what I did, because it's a real tongue twister, isn't it? Have you ever tried to sing that chorus?
Not recently, no.
Can't get enough of that stuff. Can't get enough of that stuff. Can't get enough. I mean, it's really a tongue twister, and it needs to get your head round it a bit before you can actually sing it. So it becomes quite catchy, I think.
Many years ago, Bill, I remember at, I think it was the Dominion Theatre, I was hosting an event, and I come out and said, and here he is talking his way through his solo hit, here's Bill Wyman. I don't know if you remember that, but Bill,
I know, that was in Tottenham Court Road, I can't remember the theatre.
Dominion.
The Dominion, but it was a charity for cancer children or something, wasn't it? Yeah, all right. Yeah, and I played it live, didn't I?
I remember. My point is, do you think there's room for now, let alone the Rhythm Kings, a Bill Wyman solo too? God help us.
No, I can't do that. It's not my forte. I can do one or two songs with the Rhythm Kings at a pinch, you know. They sort of talk me into it. And they go down all right with simple bass lines. But to try to do this as an up-front person, which I'm not, because I sit with the drums in the rhythm section, I can't go out and do that. If I was a guitarist, you can, or a piano player, you can, because you can sing the line and then do a little riff or something on the piano or the guitar, like B.B. King, for instance, or Eric does. You know, they sing da 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 dee 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 wah 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 dee dee dee. You know, but I can't. I'm there all the time because I'm the bass player. I have to be in the rhythm section, getting it down, and I can't sing and play at the same time. You know, drummers can do four things at the same time, and some of them sing as well, like Levon Helm and Phil Collins and people like that. I can't do it, so it'd be foolish for me to try. I would fail miserably.
So do you think Bono can sleep well in his bed tonight?
Definitely. him and all the rest.
Bill Wyman.
Bono don't play bass, does he? See?
That's true.
He's got the advantage.
Bill Wyman, good luck with the album and the next follow-up album, whenever that is.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
For ME1, I'm Steve Blacknell with the one and the very only Mr. Bill Wyman.